Hello and welcome to the Live From Rest podcast. And in this episode, I'm interviewing my son and co-founder of Live From Rest, Joshua Luke Smith. Josh is working on a new project called This Is the Main Event. And the challenge of this is to believe that the life you always longed for is hidden in the life you have. I'll say that again. The life you always longed for is hidden in the life you have. I'm Steve Smith, your host and the author of the Live From Rest app. In the Live From Rest podcast, we take time to explore the ancient art of being. We host conversations, short talks, and reflections about how we can live from rest in a world full of busyness and distraction. We created the Live From Rest app because we needed it and we think you might need it too. So if you haven't done so already, please make sure that you go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download it today. We're adding fresh content regularly so you'll be able to find the meditation you need. Discover meditation rooted in the way of Jesus and a life of peace with freedom from anxiety, worry, and strife. Well, hi Josh. Thanks for joining us again on the Live From Rest podcast. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm good. It's good to be here.
And Josh, you're a busy man. You've recently finished your second album. You're always writing new poems and podcasts. So I'm really interested in the latest project you've been working on. I believe it's going to be a book. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one because a lot of the things that I create, I set out with the intention to create them. What we're talking about today isn't that really at all. So the main event, or this is the main event, came about through a saying that my wife, Kara, and I adopted because we needed it. So in the kind of early years of Eden, our daughter, being born, we would find ourselves like every, young parent does, in these moments of feeling trapped in your own life. It's the middle of the night and your child is screaming and their cries are bouncing off the walls and it's dark and it feels like morning's never going to come. And then you do it all over again.
I remember when that was you, Josh.
Yeah, right. It's a rite of passage. We all go through it. And what we found in those times, like again, everyone I'm sure does in one way or another, is almost the desire to escape your own life. And it's not just that we have a baby. It's that, there's bills that need paying and there's a to-do list that's always growing. And then you have a friend that gets sick, or there's always something that presents itself. And we began saying this phrase, this is the main event, during those moments, whether it was the baby crying or it was sitting in a hospital waiting room, to remind ourselves that this isn't the part of our life we're trying to escape or distract or dull or dumb ourselves away from. This is the main event of our life. This is the raw ingredient of our life. And it was an invitation, as a saying, it was an invitation to embrace our life more fully and wholeheartedly. And so I began sharing it with a few friends. I would just kind of say it, and then I realized they began saying it for themselves. And then I posted it a few times on social media, and people started really spreading it. And all of a sudden, it became a mantra, not just for us, but for many people. And so I've been writing around the themes of the main event. And yeah, it's most likely going to be the next book. And it's a podcast that I do. And I'm really reflecting on the teachings of Jesus, who says, if you want a full life, like if you want a full, abundant life, then there has to be an embracing of suffering and a willingness to sacrifice. And that's all through the Gospels. It's pick up your cross and follow me. It's lay down your life in service of love. It's this kind of, upside down way of living. Thomas Merton, the contemplative writer and monk, said, the more you try to avoid suffering, the more you suffer, because smaller and more insignificant things begin to torture you in proportion to your fear of being hurt. So the one who does the most to avoid suffering is in the end the one who suffers the most. And whether it's standing in line for too long at a shop, or whether it's sitting in a hospital waiting room with a diagnosis that you're dreading, there's an invitation into our suffering where we find more of our life, we find more freedom, and we find more of who God is. So that's really where it's come from. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's interesting, because so much of life for so many people is this sort of concept that when such and such happens, then it's going to be okay. When I get that promotion, when my education is finished, when I retire, when my children get their education, whatever it may be, and it's just trying to escape. And as you say, it's an avoidance of suffering. As you were talking, I was thinking, as I've often thought recently, about the prayer that's used in 12-step fellowship meetings, and it's a very powerful prayer. I've been aware of it for a long time, but I'm only now recognizing the power of the prayer, and that's: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Because there's so much peace in accepting the circumstances, the situation that we're in, rather than struggling, fighting to change something that's just going to cause us distress.
Yes. Yeah. And then the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that, you're absolutely right. Like both of those things, the acceptance of what is, and also, the courage to act on that which you can partake in as a peacemaker and as a change agent, is like the engaging into your life. And we've talked about this before, but distraction is the kind of drug of choice, in our generation. And we can so easily be persuaded to abandon our life. And again, like that could be just, doom scrolling, but it could also be just in your thinking. It just, the way you imagine your life, the way the vision you have of where you'll be is so often a vision without the present suffering. But there is always another here. Here is where we are right now. But when we get there, we'll just be here again. It's always going to be here, And there's I don't know too much about neurology, but I would imagine there's probably been quite a bit of work done on around the kind of the psychology of anticipation, and how anticipating something is often better than getting it, Anticipating the reward is always more kind of gratifying than actually the reward itself. And so, yeah, so much of my writing and thinking about the main event is to fully be embodied and embrace the moment you're in and the life that you have, and looking at the people who have done that. So just, really specifically, Mom, you and Mom have been caring for my grandmother, Mom's mom, recently. And that is that is what most people go through in that life, is a period of time where you have to do the right thing and lay down your liberty and serve your parents or someone in your community in the way that you and Mom have been doing. And I would like to suggest that there's abundant life in there, as tiring and as draining as it can be. That is touching the blue flame of existence. That is really engaging with the life you have. And almost to say, if you didn't do that, if you kind of blocked your ears and, allowed someone else to do it, you would ultimately suffer more, because your opportunity to practice compassion, as draining as it is, or as, as real as it is actually more rewarding than your abstaining, and that's a spiritual principle that I see throughout the life of Jesus that I'm trying to, in one way or another, remind people of, and beginning with myself.
So, yeah, now we all have challenges and difficulties that may make sense for. You think, this is, maybe people listening are thinking of circumstances that are challenging at the moment, that, okay, I'm going to embrace, and I'm going to embrace this, and I'm going to work with it. But there are some situations which are awful. And you said something like the challenge is to embrace what we have in the present. So how does the person who is really going through really tough times, maybe, I don't know, facing a terrible diagnosis, awful relationship situations, financial challenges, difficult housing, there's all sorts of circumstances that can be pretty horrendous. Is that to be embraced?
Yeah, and when I say embraced, I don't mean reframing it in this kind of naive, happy-go-lucky, positive outlook. I mean allowing ourselves to be formed by it into the people that we most yearn to become. So a lot of my writing and thinking around the subject is actually inspired by the people in my life and the people, I've learned of who have suffered in the most severe ways. One of the phrases I use when I'm thinking about it is sometimes it's too bad to be true. We often talk about something being too good to be true, but sometimes life is too bad to be true. And yet it still is. I'm thinking about my friend Eric, who lost his wife to breast cancer. And he would talk about getting up early in the morning before his kids got up because he knew he was just going to cry. Like he knew he was just going to sob for the first hour of the day in the wake of his wife not being there. So he'd get up early before they woke up so he could just have that time. And when they woke up, he could be slightly more, able to help them out. And he would sit at the kitchen table and he said he would just cry into his cereal. And as his tears fell into the milk, he would pray a prayer, which was, God, don't waste my suffering. Like, may my tears be like seeds that are dropping into the soil of my life and do something with it. Like, bring something good of this. Don't waste it. It's not pretending that it's different. It's as worse as it could be. There's no way of changing that. It's as terrible as it can be. But you read stories that have come out of the most unbelievable circumstances. I read recently about Eric Liddell, the great runner, Chariots of Fire. And, we know he ran that fast mile and he got the medal. But what some people don't know is that he actually spent the rest of his life in China. And when Japan occupied China, many people, including his wife and his two daughters, escaped and they left to Canada. Winston Churchill actually tried to get him out of China. But when he was in a camp occupied by the Japanese, he allowed a pregnant woman to take his place to leave the country. And he stayed there and he died there of a brain tumor. And people in the camp spoke of who he was and what he was like in those last days. And they said he was a man of great joy. In fact, one person said he was like Jesus in running shoes. And this is a man who had cultivated a life of great perseverance and great joy. The Apostle Paul says that our suffering produces endurance, and our endurance produces character, and then our character produces hope. So the relationship between hope and suffering, are inseparable. That you cannot. If you ask
Absolutely.
me, Josh, what does it mean to be hopeful? I would say, well, that has everything to do with how you suffered. Your hopefulness is in direct relationship to your suffering. So this is the main event, is a very simple mantra to enter into our suffering, whether it's waiting in the queue too long, whether you're at Tesco's and you just want to, and you forget, no, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to form spiritual patience, endurance in me, or whether it's in the hospital ward. These are opportunities to become increasingly hopeful people. And we won't become the person that we long to be through shortcuts and instant gratification and numbing ourselves down into oblivion. It will be through a full engagement with our life in all of its expression. And one day, whether, it's because someone's made the comment about us or we look in the mirror, we'll realize over time we've become the person we dreamt of being. It's like Michelangelo was given a block of marble, and out of that marble, he cut the statue of David. And it's like, that's how Christ looks at us. We can be formed into something. And every time that I choose to embrace my suffering, the marble is being chipped away at, and the man in the marble is being revealed. And that's my invitation to everyone else.
Yeah, that's great. It is a theme. It's a recurring theme. I'm just reminded now of James, the beginning of James. Count it joy.
Yes, yeah, count it joy.
Encounter trials, sufferings, because it's
Of
through
many
that
kinds.
that
Yes.
our character is formed. Josh, you've got a blessing that you thought you might share.
Yeah, I can end with this. So just a really simple blessing to embrace all of life and its absurdities and its obstacles, and to become people of hopefulness throughout it. So there's so many things.
Let's hear it.
There's so many things I want to tell you. but instead I'll lift my eyes towards heaven, stretch out my hands and bless you. I'm not entirely sure how blessings travel, how they move through time and space, and how they rest upon the shoulders of those they grace. I just pray you see your place in the unfolding of this creation and how lost we'd all be without you, especially on the days when the car won't start and the jam jar breaks and making your way out of bed takes everything you have. I hope this blessing reaches you on the afternoons where you feel overlooked, when you don't get the credit you deserve, and on the days when dinner is overcooked and the sink gets blocked, and when you're taking out the bins and the bag splits and the juice drips onto your socks, when you realize you forgot to bring your key and you're locked outside and the sky's open and you feel the first of 10,000 drops. I hope this blessing reaches you in the middle of the night when you're wrestling with regret and you're punching into the sheets, deafened by anxious thoughts, or rocking a baby back and forth who won't relent and let you sleep. I hope this blessing finds its way into the ward as you wait for the results or try to absorb information that has changed your entire life with a handful of words. I hope this blessing holds you when none of it makes sense, and we are trying to collect the pieces of your heart that have been scattered across the floor, dancing into the air like paper in the wind. I hope it holds you in its arms when you are out of options and when you have run out of road and when all you can see is your problems and a future you don't control. And I hope it makes eye contact when the shame feels unbearable and you feel like your skin is unwearable, and it reminds you that grace, oh grace, makes all things repairable. I hope it defines you as a miracle in motion, daring and incomparable. I hope this blessing turns the tables alongside you as you rally against injustice and the forces that oppress. I hope it reminds you that you are a part of the revolution. May it open up your eyes to see the holy inconvenience, leading you to lay an extra place at the table, nudging you to heat up enough leftovers for the angels. And I hope it leads you to the mountaintop. And when you reach the summit, I hope you see you're standing on the life that you once rejected and rubbished. And what I really hope is that you scream with sacred zeal, this is the main event. In all its wonder and awkward feelings, I hope how you see how far you've come and that you're only getting started. I hope this blessing leads you to live wholeheartedly, honestly, and glad, because the life you've always longed for is hidden in the life you have.
Wow. That's lovely. That's beautiful. The life you always longed for is hidden in the life you have.
Yeah.
That's profound. And if someone wants to get more of this, they can go to your website, Joshua Luke Smith.
At joshualukesmith.com. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, Josh, it's always fun to hang out with you, especially face to face, but also online too. God bless you, Josh, and your wonderful family.
Yeah, bless you. Thanks so much.
Well, I hope you found that podcast helpful. And if you did, please share it. And also please rate our podcast. Thank you so much for joining me, and God bless you. Bye for now.